Hello and welcome in to Browns Film Breakdown post game of the Denver Broncos defeating the Cleveland Browns. My name is Peter Moses. I am happy to be joined by Jake Burns. And boy, do we have a lot to talk about tonight. What a wildly entertaining game. Not the result I know a lot of people want and are super upset about, but man, a lot of stuff happened. Browns lose to the Denver Broncos 41-32, a game where they passed for, I think it was 1,300 yards, Jeudy accounting for about 1,000 of those, and yet they came up short in what I think might have been both the most entertaining Monday Night Football game and Browns game of the year, potentially. They do fall to 3-9, and are all but eliminated, I think, from the playoffs at this point. So much to dive into, and we will do so with my guest all week on BrownsFilmBreakdown.com, best place for Browns coverage via a daily newsletter, podcast, and film study. Jake, what is the biggest takeaway you have from this game that ended 3 minutes ago? I bet that's entertaining, but I cannot hear you.
There it is. One thing at a time, huh? Yeah, would love to do these shows one time and not be muted. I thought they played really hard, which mattered immensely. Whether we want to talk about that following an immediate loss, I understand the anger with that, but you want to see these guys at 3-8 with the realization that your season is, at this point relatively over, to be playing hard. They did that. Obviously, the biggest takeaway from losing a game like that is, I mean, it just me personally, I kind of feel sick for Jameis Winston. And I think the cliche gets thrown around quite a bit with Jameis. It's like the Jameis Winston experience, but I mean, it just really is. He does so many things so well. He has an ability to sit inside the pocket and allow chaos at times to get around him. He's actually escaping some chaos in the pocket really well, climbing it, avoiding it, throwing downfield. He really does allow you to work the full 53 laterally. But you're reminded of why, Jameis without the interceptions is a guy that is the first overall pick. He is everything he was built to be coming out of Florida State. And that part has just never worked for him. It's never been a thing. I think I saw a stat tonight that there have only been in the NFL 5 all-time quarterbacks who have thrown for 454 touchdowns and 3 interceptions in a game, and he has 2 of them. So, this is who he is. And, what you're hoping for is in this sort of scenario where they do have to play him for a while. We'll see if that continues to be the thing. But, you're torn because you like him. You like the person. He seems great. He's jovial. He distributes the football really well, as we saw tonight. We can talk about Jeudy and Elijah and David and Mike Woods got involved. But the thing that's the hardest here is the crippling mistakes. And it's 2 straight years now. I think we can all agree that we've seen, a quarterback feel-good story take over for Watson and then have these same issues. These guys who are they're able to do the antithesis of what Deshaun does well, which is sit within structure, deliver the football to the open player through progressions. And that happens often, but there are 5 to 7 times in a game where they blank. And tonight, Jameis had 3 interceptions. He could have had another 1, and he missed a couple downfield throws that we can agree he needed to make in certain moments of the game too. So you look at it, Peter, it's 34-58, 497, 4 touchdowns, and that's remarkable. We've not seen a Browns quarterback do that before in terms of sheer yardage and combined with touchdowns. But I mean, in all reality, there were 2 and really close to a third pick 6. So, you lose 41-32, and then the 32 is driven a lot by his efforts, but he also handed away 14 points. And again, a touchdown late, you kind of, you flip that around. That's giving away 14 more by losing 7 of your own, and the ball game ended, whatever. But that's it. And that's the thing I think that sucks. And I'll throw back to you, but you had 2 straight years of these guys. Joe Flacco, great story. Love him. Lot to like. Players liked him. And you have Jameis, lot to like. Great story. Players like him. And they can't stop doing this. And this is why they're they're in the situations that they're in. And it also it is crippling. These interceptions are not normal interceptions. They're back-breaking, crippling return for touchdown types of interceptions, and that is the difference tonight. So as much good, and you're like, I wanted him to win that game. I wanted him to win that game. It would like, I don't know. It's just so
I
hard.
believe PFF categorizes them as Matt Schabian interceptions. I think that's what they're
Yeah,
technically called.
they're just the worst types of interceptions that you could throw. And again, to Jameis's like credit, there was no, every time they handed the football off, it was a net loss. Like Denver's pass defense was really bad. It was rough throughout the game. They looked lost. The communication issues that they were having, leaving people running in various portions of the field, all three levels. So I also didn't think the Browns ran it very well. I think between Nick and Jerome, you're talking 18 carries for 60 yards. It's not good. They couldn't lean on that. So they had to throw him. They threw him 58 times. I think the drop back total is probably something like 63 or 64. And that part of it is a bummer. But, a game like this, they were entertaining. I'll give them this. They were entertaining. It was a fun game to watch, and they gave it all they had. They need to figure out a quarterback who can do the things Jameis does well there without throwing the football to the other team in crippling fashion.
I mean, ultimately, this team isn't going to the playoffs anyways. And I think my biggest concern was that they were going to embarrass themselves on national television. Yeah. I was legitimately afraid that was something that could have happened. So the fact that it didn't, there are no moral victories. But with the ineptitude that we have seen over the last 3 years at times with this offense, I also don't think the running was necessarily like, if you run the ball more and more successfully, do you win this game? I don't. Maybe, but also their secondary and their defense was so bad that how can you kind of argue with throwing for 475 yards passing as well? So a little chicken and the egg there for me, but I think
just Winston reducing the risk factor is the way you could look at it. You don't drop him back 55 times, or you cutting out 15 of those. That's one less big turnover, perhaps. I mean, there's some give and take there. But you can't just hand it off. And I give them credit. They gave up on it because it was done. It was cooked. They weren't able to run, and they tried into the early portion of the second half, but you could see they just were like, this is not something we can pull off here. So yeah, I mean, it's a different conversation, Peter, if they were running well and they were not doing it. They had to throw. They just had to.
But something that I think has been in a steady decline since the Flacco experience is their line play as well. And you have to factor in where the line is now compared to where it was maybe a year ago, which I think is not to be ignored when you're kind of thinking about these two experiences that we've had. And ultimately, what this leads to is just unknown that we'll get into in the offseason and heading into next year, which is just still a Browns team, while entertaining, searching for a quarterback for sure. But I don't know. I also don't know if, do you, if you are the Browns right now, are you, and I know we're thinking about this game and moving ahead of it pretty quickly, but I mean, I don't know how you don't start Jameis for at least the next several games with a performance like this. I understand that the interceptions are devastating, but do you even consider turning the DTR to see where he is? I mean, as you said when we started, this team played really hard, and I thought it was just nice for a team that did not look like they were playing hard for the entire first month of the season to just have a give a damn, even though they gave up. Well, the defense really only gave up 28 points, but I don't know. It's just kind of it's a lot to think about, and continues to be like a Jameis Winston pregame speech, confounding, a little entertaining, but ultimately nothing is clear in terms of where to go from here.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. It's a tricky question. On one hand, you want to give up on the interceptions. You can't win that way. But at this point of the season, at now 3-9, do you want to win that way? Like, does it matter that much? Like, my theory here is he's making the wide receivers better. He's giving them a ton of opportunity. He is clearly bringing out the best in those guys. So
Elijah Moore, I know, is going to be forgotten about in this game, but just doing things that you haven't seen him do since when? I don't know.
No, it's I mean, it's pretty, we can go through it. I mean, Jerry Jeudy had 13 targets, 9 for 235, and we'll again break it down in a moment with him. Elijah Moore had 14 targets, 8 catches, 111. David had 17 targets, 9 for 52 and a couple scores. Mike Woods had 5, including 3 catches for 43 yards, and he drew that deep downfield pass interference. And then, a couple running back targets. And Jamari Thrash had 2 for 11. I mean, and Cedric Tillman is obviously vastly improved playing with him too. He will throw it. Like, he's not afraid to throw it. Guys think they have every opportunity to get the football. And to me, that matters for these guys getting better. What we want is these wide receivers to continue to improve so that when they hit the ground with a fresh start next year, there's an immense amount of confidence and belief. And like, those guys are better. And, you can go out and maybe draft one. I'm not one to be like, this is a good loss, but I think when you're 3-8 losing in this fashion, not fun, but the draft pick being maybe 5th instead of 12th is I just shrug my shoulders at it. It's not a big deal. I don't want the Browns to be comfortable with losing, and I think they're fighting, and that's great. And they had a chance to win tonight, and I would have preferred they won tonight, but I'm not losing sleep over the fact that they lost this football game, because at this point the season's cooked and they're out. I mean, I'm out here to try to get the best player available for the first round pick they've had in 3 years. So that matters to me too. I think Jameis having the opportunity to prove himself the rest of the year makes sense to me, because if he was making the offense collectively worse, making the talent worse, let me say that, his mistakes crushed them tonight. There's no way around it. What I'm getting at is if he was bringing out the worst in everybody around him, it's clear the offensive line is a better cohesive unit with him. It's clear wide receivers are playing better with him. Those guys around him are playing pretty well. So I would like to see how that works out. And I would like to see Jameis also get an extended run as a starter. He hasn't had that since Tampa. It's been very spotty in those New Orleans years. So I just would like to keep trotting him out. I think if you saw something every day at practice with Dorian Thompson-Robinson that made you believe you have to start him, they would start him. I think it's like we kind of know what he is at this point, and I would prefer to run an offense that's fun to see. If Jameis doesn't throw that late throw to Akins, if he throws the ball on the sideline to Elijah Moore instead of leaving it behind him, those are the two razor thin differences in this game tonight. So like, I'm not bent out of shape about like starting him the rest of the year and all the surrounding elements that come with it. I would prefer to go that route because I think the offense functions better with him as that type of quarterback. So that's where I'm at with it. Some people are going to disagree with me. They want to win above all. That's great. I do too. But like,
some of the comments in the YouTube, which I super agree with, and we talked about and begged for actually in the first part of the season, is I'd rather watch this game. He threw 3 picks. He threw 4 touchdowns. I'd rather watch this game every single time. It was entertaining. There were ups and downs. And as you said, the talent, it's funny, Andrew Berry is a bad GM, and then all of a sudden Jameis gets in there and he's making so many of the decisions that Berry had with Jeudy, Elijah Moore. They look better. Even a little Jamari Thrash action, some Mike Woods. I'm with you that I think he has, he's only a year older than Watson. Yeah. Flacco was fun, but like he was throwing, to his kids on a high school field, getting ready for the tryout with the Browns like that. And you saw it in Indianapolis this year. It wasn't realistic. It wasn't sustainable. And it wasn't something that was going to actually be in their long-term plans. And you do have Winston here who should be someone that I think you're right, you should be examining, because someone's going to give him an opportunity. And you should know if it's going to be you. And this is a great last month of the season that if they play like this, this will be one of the more entertaining teams that could go, to 4 wins, maybe 5 wins, if they keep playing like this. So I think it really depends on if you're still watching this post game, if you're watching the Browns on Monday night, you care about this team and you care about the future development of it. And I think understanding what Winston is, and what he can do for the development of the rest of the team is important.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. I think the offense being fun, the guys, yeah, they're upset. The interceptions hurt. You watch the body language after them. It's not great, but they get opportunity to catch the football and play in space. And that is from a developmental perspective, which is what I'm most concerned about, the most worthwhile piece of all of this. So I'm good with Jameis playing. I'm good with him giving guys throws down the middle of the field, giving them throws on the sideline. He just operates inside of this offense, which has a lot of what Kevin has traditionally done: in breakers, clear throughs, comebacks, sail route, flood concepts. They're doing a lot of what Kevin has done. Like, this is, Ken might be calling it, and that's fine, but they're meshing together a lot of their joint thought process on this stuff. I didn't think tonight's operation was very clean. Too many delay of game penalties happen. Also, you're playing in Denver. It's very loud. It can be hard. I get it, but there's too many of those. But for the most part, the offense is what Kevin has done, mixed in with some more of, like, what has Ken likes to do too. A little bit of some gun wrinkles. They're doing little RPO stuff here and there, but that was more down the alley of what Kevin is best at. But there's a couple things I want to hit on before we split, because we're not going to stick around. It's past midnight. It can't be here forever. But Jerry Jeudy was phenomenal, and I think you just got to call it out. Like, I mean, can you convince Jerry that he's playing Denver every week? Can you do that, right? Like, I'm impressed from start to finish, Peter. I mean, like, the first throw of the game is him chunk play middle of the field. There was several plays in the first half that, I mean, they missed him on an in-breaking post that should have been a 75-yard touchdown there too. Like, it was there at half, and it was there after half. He was catching footballs. Like I said, in-break, there were two on Patrick Surtain's stop routes, which are very challenging to create separation against Patrick Surtain the second, which is, I think, many people consider the best corner in football. Remarkable stuff there against one-on-one. He was beating zone coverage, also making really tough catches. That ball that was tipped by Jerome Ford, and he caught on a 3rd and 15, turned into 17 yards at the sideline. The 2-point conversion return route, pivot route, was phenomenal. Great catch and getting across the goal line for that to make it 28-25. And I blocking downfield, it was all great. And even the last interception there, when the game was obviously over, and he runs down the linebacker who picked that football off with great hustle. I mean, if this is the Jerry Jeudy you're getting, I've been very vocal about, he is a fantastic, like, second wide receiver. Like, that's great. He can be that secondary wide receiver for you, which is the price point, which is everything aligns there. But if this is the version they can get, who can win one-on-ones, who can win over the top against zone coverage vertically, who does the little things and is playing, like, with a bunch of confidence, this is a number one guy. I mean, I don't know if this continues. He's going to, I think, 235 and 9 and a touchdown. He is trending toward his best career season, but not enough positive things can be said about Jerry Jeudy's performance tonight.
I think also the first half of the season with Jerry Jeudy is a microcosm for his entire experience in Denver, where there was just no reliable quarterback for him who was going to put him in a position to succeed.
It's ironic they have like Bo Nix now, who will throw anything up downfield for anybody, and he's now gone. It's kind of ironic for him.
Which got a little silly there towards the end of that game. That one up he threw up to Denzel was like playing jackpot in the playground or something like that. But I just think it shows the confidence of someone who is delivering the scheme, the decision making from the quarterback position, and how that can inspire someone like him to play totally beyond what we could have anticipated him doing and has done for, I don't know, his time in Cleveland to this point. I would say shout out to him. It was nice to see Chubb get in the end zone. Elijah Moore, the whole receiving crew basically played their tails off. I will leave the line and running to you later this week, but I just want, before we go, to kind of ask you, what are you most surprised about at this point in the season, between the defense and the special teams? Hopkins, again, just does not look like he has any confidence to do anything, although he was good after the miss, but it still felt like a really big miss in this game that also kind of led to the pressure situations that, caused those turnovers and those pick sixes. And the defense played really well at points. They turned the ball over. Denzel Ward playing out of his mind. Diabate, a couple other people, Delpit playing pretty well. But again, whether it's scheme, whether it's miscommunication, death taxes, and Jim Schwartz's defense giving up a ridiculous 90-something yard touchdown because of a miscommunication. I'm just curious, like, what are you taking away from this from defense or special teams to think about both for the future, but also for the rest of the season.
Well, from a tonight standpoint, Denzel was great. I think he had one penalty, but otherwise just created 2 turnovers. He's an All-Pro this year. I just don't see any way around it. Really great, leading the NFL by a wide margin on plays on the football. So he deserves credit. Martin Emerson, to me, no different than the player that was here the first 2 years. It feels like a reliever who can't find the strike zone and has lost his confidence. Like, I think he got beat a couple times in that Dallas game or the second game. It might have been Malik Neighbors who broke his brain, but like he got beat a couple times this year and he stopped trusting the instinct stuff that has worked so well for him through 2 years. And I think he's afraid of getting beat. And now it's like causing delayed reactions because he's worried about that process coming to fruition. So there's, when you're living on an island as a corner, as often as some of these guys are in this system, I think that comes into play. And to me, he is playing very low confidence right now. And that's why you're seeing him be late on covering crossers. That's why you're seeing him grabbing when he shouldn't grab. Those bad habits are forming because I just feel like he's lacking some sort of belief. He needs something to go right for him to get some of that back. And I don't know if that's the perfect formula for it, but everybody's wondering, like, is there something physically wrong with him? No, I think a lot of what's going on with him is mental. I don't know if he gets around it, but he's definitely struggling in the speed of like decision-making at the point of break of receivers' routes and things of that nature. We talk about Denzel defensively, 400 yards, 6 yards of play. It wasn't good. They did not defend the run very well. And this is a place where you're really missing JOK. I like Diabate, and I think is doing a nice job. Jordan Hicks he was fine. He had 12 tackles, led the team pretty significantly, but he just a little slow at times. JOK just such a knife through hot butter at times, man. Like, he can erase so many schemes that shouldn't pop, but he's able to get through. So like that's a place that it's noticeable. I thought Grant Delpit was fine for the most part. I do also think that Jim Schwartz has a really ridiculous habit on some third downs of putting the Browns in some bad coverage spots, like putting them in invert 2. I wish he would scrap invert 2. It doesn't work for them when they have a corner run to the deep half where Denzel's trying to run from the numbers to the deep middle while, Jordan Hicks is trying to chase Denzel Mims down the middle of the field and it's a 93-yard touchdown. Like, that part of it's really frustrating. I think he sometimes, and tonight I noticed it too, Miles is dropping in coverage. Shelby Harris is dropping in coverage. And like, I think that at times you can like be searching for things and think you need to get overly creative. And I don't think they need to do that all the time. Like, I think they're trying to do too much and they need to just get good at some sort of like core package of coverages off of their man coverage looks, but like they need to get better at playing quarters. They don't have any quarters, and like their lack of diversity back there. And then the things they do try to be diverse with are difficult asks are a problem. So like, I'd love to see that get better throughout the year. I thought they had a good week with this last week. It was obviously snowing, and Newsome didn't play well, but anyway, I thought other defensive takeaways, the DTs were not good in this game. Like, just didn't think they played well. They were manipulated upfield, and I didn't think they handled the line of scrimmage run game stuff well. I know there was no sack on Bo Nix. That kid is way more athletic than people give him credit for. He is really tough to get a hold of moving laterally outside the pocket. So like, I have to watch to give you guys a better answer about did Miles no show or so. He had a pressure on the Denzel sack that mattered, but like, I don't have a great answer on edge players yet, but defensively, it just wasn't good enough. I thought too many plays over the middle of the field got gashed on, and the run game stuff where they gave up over 100 rushing yards in this one just wasn't a tight, sound game. But again, 2 pick sixes put in at 41, but they also gave up 28 points defensively. So that part of it
hurt. It's hard for
hurt.
the normies like me not to get caught up in the back and forth of the game. And when you're kind of just playing to keep the game close, I think it makes the defense look a little bit more forgiving than probably your film session will. And I think the one thing I took away from this game, which is the most important thing, is I will be incredibly disappointed if they're not thinking hard about drafting on either line with the first pick in there, with the first round pick they have this year. I cannot see the way these lines have been playing on both sides of the ball, where an interior lineman a tackle on either side, basically.
Yeah.
Like I just think it's I'll defer to you again on the line play. I didn't think the offensive line was horrible, but Winston definitely goes in a lot more heat, I thought, than Nick was.
Here's a context for you. I mean, they update this throughout the week as like these companies do more tape review. From the first run through, the calculation has the Broncos had 21 pressures on Jameis in this one, 4 for Jonathan Cooper, 4 for Nick Bonino, 3 for Zach Allen, then some other spatterings, 21. The Browns only have an early, review here. They only have 8 pressures on Bo Nix in this one. Miles had 2, and then a spattering of guys with 1. Dalvin Tomlinson and Isaiah McGuire had 1. Those are the only other D linemen with a pressure. So that means Okoronkwo played 22 pass rush snaps, had none. Shelby Harris, 23, had none. Mo Hurst, 17. So they didn't get after the passer well enough, didn't make life hard enough on Nix, and didn't defend, I think, soundly in run fits. And that's how you give up 400 yards in this one. So there you go.
A 3-9 team that has found, I think, almost every way to lose this year, which has been pretty interesting. They've lost, they couldn't score more than 18 points for the first half of the season. And tonight they lost by throwing for 1,300 yards, which was incredible.
This stat might be out there. I'm not on Twitter or Blue Sky or whatever right now, so there's probably somebody more NFL national based. But this feels like one of those games where it's like there's only been this many losses by teams who do these things. I mean, the Browns threw for 497 and 4 touchdowns. They went for 552 collectively on the game, 28 first downs, 9 of 19 on third down. By far their best game of the season on third down. 6.6 yards of play, 32 minutes time of possession in this one, and lost. So that's what 2 pick sixes will do to you. And, it's not a 93-yard touchdown pass allowed. That's what it'll do.
And it's been that kind of year. I think the bigger question is, what are they going to have to do from a schematic standpoint, from a personnel standpoint, potentially from a coaching standpoint? I don't think that's coming from maybe Kevin, but potentially, looking at everyone else is like, how do you stop having these things that feel like they're breaking your back on a weekly basis that winning teams, maybe they don't do, but if they do, they're at least overcoming in a more consistent way. So
yep.
Lots to look at. Entertaining game. I had a good time watching this game. It's hard to be sad that they're not 4-8 and that they're 9-3.
I wish they were 9-3.
Jeudy.
3-9. That sucks.
I mean, it'd be great if they were 9-3.
It'd be great. It'd be fun.
They'd be the Pittsburgh Steelers. All right. On that note, you can check out Jake and everything he's got going on, breaking down both the offense and the defense this week at brownsfilmbreakdown.com. Newsletters, podcasts like this. And we're back in Steelers week. We'll see. We got an interesting week here.
Short week and a trip to Pittsburgh is not a good recipe. We'll see how they handle it.
Not ideal. Yeah. So, and I'm sure TJ Watt isn't going to be thinking about what happened 10 days ago either. So
no, not at all.
They're not going to be motivated in the slightest. So
nope.
I wish everybody a healthy and safe return from Denver and heal up in those cryo chambers ASAP, because you are going to need it for some more AFC North football. And we have Hard Knocks this week. Let's go.
We do.
That is we got a busy week here. December honestly was looking pretty bleak for most of the year and somehow feels pretty entertaining. So, all right, for Jake Burns, I'm Peter Moses. Thanks for hanging out with us late night. And we will see you this week at Browns Film Breakdown. Go Browns.
Go Browns.